Okay, so we've been working with some templates in Aptana Studio, and we found that there are ways of doing includes that will allow it to either automatically update or to manually update to include contents from another file, such as nav.html. Now what we want to do is we want to go back to our template, and we want to design it to match sort of this diagram that we have here, so that the template will include a logo and a header. It'll have a place for an include for nav.html. It'll have a section, call it whatever you want. I call mine main body. And then it'll have a section for a footer that will have an include to footer.html. So let's go in and take a look at what we've got here. So what I'm doing is opening my HTML document. I'm going to close everything else I've got open here. So I'm working on the template here, and so my header, I need to add a logo. We'll take care of that in a little while. I want to take care of the includes right now. So I've got this kind of include, but that's the kind that makes me manually update it. So what I want to do is I want to change this to a more traditional include, just a standard include. But before we can do that, an include is actually a PHP kind of document. So what we need to do is we need to set it up so that we can use this as a PHP template. So if you haven't done it already, go to Commands and go to PHP and choose Edit This Bundle. That will open up, let me go ahead and scroll down here. That will open up the PHP master section. And there's a file, a section down in here called templates. Now, what we can do is I've got this HTML5 template already set up. What I want to do is I'm going to open that, and then I'm going to save that into that PHP and change the name. So I'm going to do a save as, and I'm going to go into PHP templates, and I'm going to do Tharp, and I'll add PHP HTML5, and I need to change that to .php. So that needs to be a PHP file. So I click OK, make sure I'm saving it into the right templates folder. I click OK, and now you'll notice that it shows up in here. Once again, what we need to do is we need to edit, in this case, inside the PHP folder, we need to edit the templates.rb file. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this, and I'm going to paste it at the end, and I am going to change the content that I need to change. And so what I want to do is I want to come in here and I want to replace this section here with a common name like that. And what I want to do here is I want to point to the file name that I saved it as here, which is okay. So I want to save that, and I want to save that. And now, as you recall, in order for it to show up over in the new templates, I'm going to have to restart. So I'm going to do a restart of my Aptana Studio software, and when it comes up I should be able to see that document. So now when I come over here, I've got if I choose new from template, you can see this PHP template, Tharp PHP template. Okay, so I'm still working on my master because I want to add the includes within that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going back to this nav, and I'm going to insert some PHP code. And this is the first time we've used PHP code, so watch carefully. In order to use PHP, you start with a less than question mark PHP, and then I like to go ahead and put the closing tag on that, just because that way I know that I won't forget it. And in this case, I just choose include, and then I have to do a brackets there, and then I have to do the name of the file, or the single quotes, and then since I only have one command, I can bring that back up to this line. So I'm going to go ahead and I can't preview this in Aptana because it doesn't have a PHP function. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to go ahead and save this, and then I'm going to close that template. I'm going to go, okay, so I want to use that PHP template to see if it's working. So I'm going to right click on my exercises folder. I'm going to choose new from template, and I'm going to choose that PHP document. I'm choosing a right click it. I'm choosing to access it in this way so that it knows the area that I'm going to want to save it. And so it's going in exercises. We'll just leave it at new_file.php just so that we can test it. And what we will do, we're going to have to synchronize that up to, or upload that to the server, and then I will open it. Okay, so what this did is it gave me this error message, and the reason that it did is because it is looking for the nav.html file, but it's looking for it inside this exercises folder. So you can take and look at this, and you can see the path that it's trying to find that file. So what we need to do, there's a couple ways that we can proceed. The first off is what we want to do is let me save a copy of this file at the root level, and you can see what happens. So let's we're going to call it, we're just going to leave it as new file. We'll call it new file top level, just so that it allows us to see it. It comes in new file top level. I'm going to upload that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to load that file, same exact file, only this time it works. The reason it works this time is because what we did here is we told it to look in whatever folder the file that we're looking at is in. So it looked for nav.html, and that was at that top level folder. It didn't work when I had it in exercises because that was up one higher level. So if I come into this new file that we saved in the exercises, and I do a .. which means go up one level and look for it, then it should work. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, and I'm going to upload that, bring the browser back over here, and reload it, and now it works because we told it to go up that level. That introduces the idea of the path as an issue that we're going to have to deal with. Now there's a lot of different ways of dealing with this. You can tell it which path to go down, and there's a couple of different ways to understand that. For instance, we need to understand the path. So if we're looking from a web browser, kevinwtharp.webtech.net brings you to my home page. kevinwtharp.webtech.net/exercises brings you to my exercises folder, and in both of those cases it loads the index.html or .php file because it is there, and that's the default path. You can use a relative path when you're doing this, so that, for instance, if those two files, like the index, like the case we just had, if they're at the same level in the same folder, all you have to do is name the file. In that case, it's nav.html. If, however, let me go ahead and zoom in here so that you can see this a little better. Okay, so you would just use nav.html. If, however, I was trying to go like from the exercises folder and nav was in the one above, I would do the .. /nav.html. If it was even in another layer down, then you'd have to do .. /.. So you can go up levels by choosing the slash, and then you define the folder or file that you're wanting to go to. So that's the relative path. The other thing that you can do is an absolute path, and an absolute path gives the full path to it. So if we had a folder called includes, and that's where the nav.html was, then you would have to give the full path. So now what we want to do is we want to set up a way where we can know what the full path is going to be, because we want to set it up so that we can include a file from anywhere without having to know exactly which path it is. It can be done with the dot and slash and moving through the directory in that way, but there's got to be an easier way, and there is. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we are going to create a new folder, and I'm just going to call that includes, and I want that inside this Aptena, or the root folder. So I'm going to call that includes. I'm going to finish that. And so what I want to do is I want to have that nav.html in there. And you'll notice that that's now in there. And the other thing that I want to do is I want to have, going back to our diagram, I want to have those other sections that are going to be part of this included in there as well. So we had talked about two sections, nav.html and footer.html, as being areas that would sit inside of that location. So what I want to do is I also want to add a footer.html document to that. So I'm going to come to this includes. In this case, I'm going to choose a right click when I'm clicking on that, and I'm just going to choose new file, and I'm going to save that in includes, and we'll call it footer.html. And I really don't want to use a template, so I'm just going to choose finish, because I don't need all of that HTML in there because it's going to be included in another document. So it just gives me this basic code. So for my footer, all I want to do is just put some kind of code in there so that you can see. And what we will do is we'll just create a paragraph. And inside that paragraph, we will just do copyright. And that's just sort of placeholder text. You can change that later on. But this allows us to work through this process. So what I want to do is I'm going to actually do this within my template, the PHP template, because it'll allow me to do the includes. Okay, so I would set up my footer down here, and since I'm doing PHP, I got to use the, and I'll just put the same code that we've had from before in there for now until we fix it. And then I want to close. You'll notice I'm being very careful about making sure that I've got the code in there right, just because it's a lot easier to do it right than to have to go back and fix it. Okay, so I've added the links to include nav.html and footer.html. Now, because those files live inside the includes folder, the only place this would actually work right now is from within that includes folder, and that's not where it's going to be. What we need to do is we need to have the entire path to that. And I showed you earlier in an earlier video how when you had an error that it would give you the path. Well, I've set up an intentional error here with this findpath.php. So I'm just going to load that web page. And it's intentionally there. This page is only there so to give me an error. But what I can see is that the full path that I'm using is root, home, content, etc., and then into Kevin Tharp, and that is my root. So that becomes the path to the root of my website. So that's one way that you can get your path. So if I then included that at the beginning of this, and I have to add includes because it's in the includes folder, if I add that full path, following me, to the front of the path for that nav.html, and do the same thing for the footer.html, then this should work. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. Again, this is the template. So I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to close that. Okay, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to choose a new file from the template, and I'm going to choose PHP, Tharp template, and it's already going to ask me where I want it to be stored, and that's going to be index. I'm going to erase over the index.html and replace it with this index.php. Okay, so you see that the index.html and the index.php are there. I'm going to delete that index.html, and I'll need to do that both on the server and here. So when I do my synchronize, so I'm going to synchronize this, and I want to delete the orphan files on the server, because what that's going to do is it's going to get rid of that index.html, and it's going to get rid of the nav.html that was originally there. So what I'm doing is I'm cleaning up my files as I go. That way there's not ghosts of previous files that still are up on the server but aren't on the local system. So I'm going to synchronize that. I'm going to let it go through its thing, and then I'm going to reload the home page and see what that looks like. So as you recall, I replaced the index.html with index.php. Okay, now this should have worked because it's giving the full path, and you'll notice that the one down here worked. That's the footer one. So what happened is the nav didn't work. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to use that information that it's put in front of me, and I'm going to try and figure out the problem. And I come in here and I immediately see the problem. There is an extra space there. So I'm going to take out that space. I'm going to do a file, save, and then I'm going to take the index.php. I'm going to push that up to the server. I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to reload that page, and voila, it works. So that tells you two things. One, what we're trying to do works, but two, also it has to be exact. You can't have an extra space. You can't have an extra character. It's looking for that precise path, and having that space at the beginning is what caused it to have that error. So now we should be able to use this code for a page anywhere in the site, because it's going all the way to the root and it's following the entire folder path down to find my includes. And then as long as things are included in this includes folder, we can use that same group and just change the file name at the end.